My first day, like most people, do little college tours. I never really did a college tour here. So my first day of classes for me was a huge shock. Just not like, it wasn't that culture shock just because I had always did events where I was like the only black person there or something. But just the comments people made, like, when I said, oh, I'm from Gary, like the first comment someone made was, oh, well, have you ever been shot? And then someone had the nerve to ask me if I had children, and it just was like, really? Okay. Made me too much like wonder what had I gotten myself into, kinda. A lot of times people will come off, especially when you say, I feel like when you're black, that's one thing against you. But then when you're from Gary, it becomes even more like, oh, well, you're from the murder capital of the world, and oh, you're from a place where they say that most people are uneducated and all your high schools are failing. And it's just like, just because these are what people say, that's not necessarily true. Like, people so many times try to discount what I learned in Gary and just the education I received because of, when you look at statistics, our schools aren't doing as well as other schools. But at the same time, the fact that I'm able to do well here, I feel like should prove against that. But it's always that constant thing where I have to prove to you that I'm worth your time and worth me being here. It's just sometimes even beyond that, it's just the looks that people give you, and even in classes, it's kind of like, I feel like people constantly ask that reassurance, like, do you get it? Like, just because of my color, and it might be me being sensitive about it, but sometimes I just feel like people don't realize, like, that I'm capable, or just as capable as everyone else, just because I come from Gary and because I'm black. There was one class when we had a topic, I'm a social work major, and so a lot of times we talk about things like welfare and, how it affects Latino and black communities. And just like the comments that people make, they're like, oh, well, they're all lazy and they don't care about anything in life. And it's just like, I'm personally not ashamed to say that that's basically the way I made it my entire life. It wasn't because my mom was lazy. She had no other option. She had 2 children, and because of different issues within herself, she couldn't really work as much as she would want to. And she had no help from my dad, so. And just to see everyone start looking at me when I started getting offended, and to kind of be like, oh, well, you would say that. No, it's not I would say that, but I just feel like you've never lived in those shoes. And so you can't judge people, and you never know those exact people you're talking about are sitting in the same classroom with you, making the same grades you are. Even in our textbooks, a lot of times, I feel like it's kind of geared against diversity. Just like there'll be chapters and books, and it'll be like African Americans and Latinos in their drug use, or African American families, African American children raised by their grandparents. Like, we're the only people that have those struggles. Just like I know plenty of other races where children are raised by their grandparents or that use drugs, and it just seems like sometimes minorities are just pinpointing out like, oh, we're the only drug users, or we're the only people that kind of have those families that aren't nuclear families. And so I take that to offense.